Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Number to call, 888-589-8840. That's the number to call if you'd like to join the conversation. Again, got a soundbite. Clip one, Rob. Let's grab. This is Cliven Bundy. He's the farmer. His family been the rancher rather. His family's been ranching in this territory in Clark County in Nevada since the 1870s. They were there long before there was even such a thing as the Bureau of Land Management. And you see these huge conflicts now between the federal government and local ranchers. I've seen it myself. Well, I worked with a guy in Idaho who wound up in prison for 18 months, federal prison for 18 months, because he signed a contract with Teton County to maintain this flood control channel in order to keep a subdivision he wanted to build to protect it from flooding. So he had a contractual obligation with Teton County to remove debris, fallen timbers, and that kind of stuff from this flood control channel. There's only water in it a couple of months a year. That's why it was not a navigable stream. You didn't put a canoe in there or a kayak in there, and because it only had water in it 2 months a year. It couldn't spawn fish in it because it only had water in it 2 months a year. But it was pretty intense runoff those 2 months, and so they wanted a flood control channel, make sure it didn't back up and flood a subdivision. So he had a contractual obligation with Teton County to keep that thing clean. Then, and the Corps of Engineers and the EPA was invited when they first were drawing up the plans for his maintenance of the channel, and they said, no, we don't have any jurisdiction here, nothing to do with this. The Clean Waters Act doesn't give us any jurisdiction over these intermittent waterways, so we're out of here. They didn't even stick around for the conversation. They said, we don't have any jurisdiction here. Knock yourselves out. We'll see you later. So with that understanding, with that communication from the federal government, he continued to maintain this flood control channel. Then at some point, a generation arose who knew not Joseph, and they came in and said, look, you got to shut this thing down. We're going to penalize you. We are going to fine you because you are violating the Clean Waters Act by tampering with this waterway. And he was accused of discharging pollutants into the waterway. And what they were talking about is when he would take an earth-moving machine in there to move debris to the side of the flood control channel to clear the channel, some of that stuff would topple back into the waterbed. I mean, that's going to happen. You pile up rocks or sand and some of it topples down from the top. And they accused him of violating the restriction against pollution. So he spent $375,000 of his own money, still went to prison. Every time they came and tried to shut him down, says, no, the federal government, the EPA, the Corps of Engineers, they told me what I'm doing is okay. So finally, they came with handcuffs and locked him up in prison. Beginning of his daughter's senior year, he missed her last Christmas at home. He missed her graduation from high school, missed her senior prom. His wife had died of a heart attack, which he thinks was triggered by the pressure that the federal government was putting on her. So we got the same thing going out there in Nevada with this rancher, Cliven Bundy. He's on Sean Hannity last night, and here's what he had to say about grazing his cattle on public land.
There's a renewable resource out here that can only be harvested by livestock. And what I do is my livestock eats off the brush and the grass, harvests it, prunes it, and it uses that forage to make an edible commodity for we, the people of the United States. Yeah. So when you get a piece of meat on your table, remember where it come from. Yeah. That's what we do. We turn this resource into a renewable a usable commodity, good for man.
Yeah. So essentially what he's saying, look, environmentalists ought to love what we do. This is the ultimate renewable resource. The vegetation grows back. The forage turns into an edible product. It's all natural. I mean, this is as natural as you can get. They're eating stuff that grows in the desert. Criminally, how much more organic can you get? And it turns into an edible product that people can eat. It is good for man. So he is expressing there a biblical view of man's proper dominion over the world. It's been entrusted to man for our use. When man converts natural resources to human use, human habitation, human consumption, he is doing something that is good. That is a good thing. He is putting earth to its intended use because God gave to man the natural resources of the earth to use for human purposes. Now, you got to be a good steward of it, because if you use it all up, then there's nothing there for you to sustain yourself and your family with. So it doesn't mean it's an excuse to rape and pillage. We're not talking about that. You need to be a good steward of the land, but you can be a good steward of the land and convert natural resources to human use. That's not raping the land. That's not pillaging the earth. That's not committing a desecration against the goddess Gaia. That's doing what God designed man to do. And that's his view of his relationship with the environment, different than the federal government. Federal government says we need all of this land for the desert tortoise. We got to have all this land for the desert tortoise. Well, trust me, those cattle, those desert tortoises, they've been living on that. And you look at that. I mean, it's just miles and miles and miles of expanse. There's plenty of room out there. I mean, common sense would tell you plenty of room for the desert tortoise and for Cliven Bundy's livestock. So anyway, he said he's not going to budge. He's going to take this thing to the wall. And you've already had federal agents have tased people in his family. You've got snipers on the foothills. This guy is the most law-abiding citizen you're ever going to meet. This guy is a solid citizen. He's what we used to call the salt of the earth. And you got snipers training long-range fire rifles on him. I mean, I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, something is way, way bad wrong with that picture. All right. Focal Point AFR Talk, number to call, 888-589-8840. Let's grab a call from David in Crosstead, Ohio. David, thanks for calling. Thanks for waiting. What's on your mind?
Thank you for your time, Brian.
Yes, sir.
I have a real quick comment on the previous phone call. Yesterday, I packaged meat that said shipped and produced in China. And I never thought I would see beef in this country that came from China and was processed in China. What I wanted to ask you was, we've been listening to all the commentaries about what the homosexuals have been doing with Hobby Lobby and the other ones, clear down to the pictures here recently.
Mm-hmm.
What if the Christian community started, say there was a known gay photographer studio in your town. If Christians started going in there in masses and were turned away, I guess what I'm saying is, why aren't the Christians using the same tactics that they're using to destroy our country?
Mm-hmm. Well, and there are times when you do need to use the same tactics. I think what's going to happen, you just have to use wisdom, and that's part of, I guess, because, the Bible is very clear that the devil has the home field advantage. The whole world lies in the lap of the evil one. And one of the things that I believe the Bible means by that is the devil believes in cheating. He believes in manipulation. He believes in breaking the rules. Breaking the rules. He doesn't play fair. He's not interested in playing fair. He's interested in winning, and he's willing to bend and break the rules in order to do that. Now, we don't believe in that. We believe in fairness. We believe in righteousness. We believe you ought to play fair. We ought to believe you play by the rules. And so at least for a time, it seems to give the enemies of the truth an unfair advantage. So we want to be sure that we're righteous in what we do. I did an interview this morning about the Day of Silence. We're encouraging families to keep their kids home from public school today because it's Day of Silence Day, sponsored by this gay and lesbian activist group. And they're having gay and lesbian students and their allies go a whole day without speaking. They want instructors and teachers to go a whole day in the classroom without speaking. And so what they're doing is hijacking the educational process for political purposes. And so we told families, look, don't cooperate with that. Don't participate in that. Keep your kid home. Let the administrators know, look, you object to this politicizing of the classroom, and your child is going to be home from school that day. And this gets the attention of schools because they get paid by having kids sitting behind their desks. They don't get paid for how much kids learn. They don't get paid for what they learn. They get paid for how long they sit in a classroom. So you're starting to hit them right in the wallet when you say, look, we're going to boycott the classroom on that day. So I think those kind of tactics we can do, and it certainly wouldn't be wrong to do exactly what you're talking about, kind of provoke some kind of confrontation, put their values to the test. I think what's going to happen now to this photographer in New Mexico, I think she is going to be overrun by gay couples who want her to shoot their same-sex ceremonies. They'll have a renewal of vows ceremony, or they'll have some kind of, and they'll do it just in the hopes that she will decline so they can take her right back into court so they can pick her pocket clean. So, we need to play fair. I think we need to understand that we're playing hardball here. The other side, we had a guest on, I forget who it was. I think it was Steve Day, said, look, we're playing T-ball. The other side's playing hardball. We need to play hardball. Abraham Lincoln said politics ain't beanbag. So we need to tough it up. We need to man it up. We need to be strong. We need to be vigorous and just be sure that we're playing fair in the process of doing it. All right, that's a good call. I appreciate that. David, let's grab a call from Don in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Don, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hello?
Yeah, Don, go right ahead. You're on
Hey,
Focal Point with Brian Fisher.
Hey, Brian, I like your show, man.
Thank you.
It gives me good highs and it gives me good lows. So, I'm at a midpoint. Hey, look, I was calling about, there was an issue about soldiers being armed on bases.
Yes.
I've served in 2 wars. I served in the Bosniak War and I served in the Iraqi War. And one of the things that I do now is counsel guys on their benefits. When they come back home, they got to go through different things if they got injured. One of the biggest things that's going on now is soldiers dealing with PTSD. PTSD is that hidden injury that most soldiers that go to a different country or go to a war-torn country and come back, man, they deal with a lot. When I retired out, I spent 28 years in the military. I retired out, and when I retired out at Fort Benning, there was at least 10 killings on post, at least 10.
Hey, Don? Don,
Yeah.
I hate to interject. I'm coming up against a hard break. Would it be possible for you to hang on for another 5 minutes so we can finish our conversation after the break? Do you have that much time?
Sure, no problem, man. I'm
All
in
right.
Walmart.
Okay, if you can hang on, we'll have you pick up where you left off. I want to hear the rest of what you have to say. You're listening to Focal Point on AFR Talk. I'm Brian Fisher. We'll be right back after the news. Don't go anywhere.